How can so many complaints with so much detail be continually brushed aside with such ease? At the same time as the independent review was taking place, we decided to develop formal complaints to send to Fife Police. There were 5 core complaints raised against Fife Police. We questioned aspects of the initial investigation, the subsequent investigations, misleading information from the police, non-disclosure of conflict of interest, and the conduct of the SIO at the FAI. Within the key complaints, there were 5 subheadings under subsequent investigations, where we highlighted a number of the points that had previously been explored in these vlogs. Even if it takes these subheadings as individual complaints, we would get to 9 complaints in total. These complaints were sent by our solicitor on the 28th of March 2012 and acknowledged by the police the next day. We were informed some time later that Fife Police would do nothing with this until the independent review was completed. It is meant to be the responsibility of police to investigate cases of reported negligence with due haste. Once again, they do not operate as protocol demands. Finally, we had a meeting planned with Fife Police to go over our complaints. Before we went, we sent another email to the Crown Office saying that with the information they had, and that which we already shared, we couldn't see why we had to make every complaint and drive every action. We knew there was enough information to give the Crown Office serious concerns over the behaviour of Fife police officers past and present. On the 20th of August 2012, we met at Fife Police Headquarters in Glenrothes to attend a meeting to discuss our complaints. This was 144 days after they had received our complaints. We had little to no hope for these complaints, as Fife Police had already allowed the SIO we had complained about to continue working on Colin's case. If they had taken our complaints seriously at all, this individual would have been removed from the case. Unfortunately, this is a process we must go through. A major concern for us was that we had to be assured that the investigator of our complaints was independent and impartial. As we delved into the Chief Superintendent's background, it became apparent that he was in charge of the Senior Investigating Officer for some part of the investigation into Colin's death. We also found out that he had worked reasonably closely to every officer we had identified in our complaint. As far as we could determine, this Chief Superintendent would be investigating his own management of the individual highlighted and would thus be conflicted by this relationship. At our meeting we also read out a piece from the Court of Human Rights pertaining to Article 2, and it stated that an investigation will only be independent if carried out by someone independent from those implicated. We abandoned the meeting until the Chief Superintendent got clarity on his rightfulness to lead this investigation. His deputy, Chief Constable, wrote that he had talked to the Fife Police Authority lawyer and it was okay for the Chief Superintendent to take on this role. Our purpose in all these letters and challenges was to remove deniability for a time such as this. With Fife Police deciding that they were entitled to proceed dealing with our complaints with the same officer, I attended Fife headquarters in Glenrothes from the beginning of September into October. We had a number of meetings and shared all of the information we had. This was the 9 core complaints and all supporting documentation. I also shared the same slides as those shared with the Crown Office before the Strathclyde investigation was announced. I was also asked to write a very specific detailed report about the SIO, which I did. I was treated well and appeared to be listened to. A lot of time passed as we awaited the Fife Police response to our complaints. We were getting concerned about the delay in this report coming to us. We had been aware that the Police Scotland would form on the 1st of April 2013 and that Fife Police would cease to exist. We had been told in January that the report would be complete by February. Now we were awaiting a report that would be difficult to follow up on as we knew we would have to. As had been much publicised at the time, Police Scotland was formed on the 1st of April 2013. We still hadn't seen the report from Fife Police by this time. Apparently they had sent it recorded delivery sometime after the 29th of March, when the report was actually drafted. The Deputy Chief Constable who wrote the report had now retired. When we reviewed the final report from Fife Police, it was as we feared. It was effectively a whitewash. The Deputy Chief Constable wrongly quoted the law when excusing actions of his officers. He had stated that things had been reviewed previously when they hadn't. He used the Strathclyde and independent investigations as excuses for his officers' actions. And we also saw that they excused themselves for doing door-to-door by blaming the fiscal. We had hoped with the introduction of Police Scotland that there was an opportunity for them to view our complaints as an independent force. What a disappointment. We attended meetings in Edinburgh, shared all the same material, but now we're told we didn't have 9 complaints, we had 44. Fife Police had taken each item we listed as support to our complaints and documented them as individual complaints, trivialising everything we complained about. According to Police Scotland, this was now our contract. Such nonsense. In July 2013, we pushed them hard on an individual complaint, but we were told it was too late, as this was now in the hand of the Police Investigation Review Commissioner. Like many things in this case, this wasn't true. It wasn't passed over for another month, which now takes us to 17 months since we raised our initial complaints. By the time our complaints were passed on to PIRC, we were well aware that the officer that most of our complaints were about could possibly retire soon. We asked if we could create a single complaint about him, but were refused. By the time they upheld a number of our complaints a year later, we were informed that the officer retired immediately. This entire process took 29 months and collectively got the officer to retirement age. Of all the complaints reviewed, the most telling come from those that are not reported or don't get upheld. We had 9 complaints they could not report on, as the Crown Office stated they may be important in any future prosecution. They also failed to uphold the lack of door-to-door inquiries, as the officer blamed the fiscal. Before the final review was published by PIRC, we received a letter dated the 15th of August 2014. Within this letter we see that 8 headings have been removed from our complaints about Fife Police. These headings relate to hiding of volatility statements, the lack of investigation of a third party, the SIO at the FAI, and other distortion of facts. The 9th point at the bottom is in reference to the letter going to the Courier, stating that it may give rise to criminal proceedings and is thus removed. At the FAI, these issues were not shared by the QC, and we were told that the QC would only share relevant evidence. In 2014, we are now being told they were being removed as they may prejudice future criminal proceedings. The real fact is that these actions keep these comments and behaviours from public viewing. In fact, they're even withheld from the police, and therefore they don't have to give any response to these complaints. One of our core complaints was that the standard protocol for police and serious crime investigations was door-to-door inquiries, and this has never taken place. Fife Police stated this was because the fiscal told them not to do this, and PIRC supported this because the SIO had filled this in the Holmes tracking system. We suggested to PIRC that they should ask the Crown Office for their thoughts on this action by a fiscal, but PIRC said they didn't have to do this. This is actually a scary status for any PIRC inquiry. If an officer knows how to corrupt the system, it will not be investigated. Although the PIRC would not ask the Crown Office about any of this, we as sure as hell did. On the 24th of April 2015, we got a response to our concerns. They said that they could not order police to not carry out protocols. We already knew this, but they went much further. The police did make an entry into the Holmes tracking system, saying that door-to-door investigations would take place, and then immediately make another entry saying that the fiscal instructed no door-to-door investigations. But there had been no correspondence between police and fiscal between these entries, or at any time that supports this claim. It was also noted that the fiscal personally identified by Fife Police as having given that instruction wasn't even there in that role at that time. Furthermore, the fiscal had received a letter from Fife Police on the 19th of March 2009 stating that retrospective door-to-door inquiries would take place, but this never happened. It is truly shocking what Fife Police were doing, and doubly so that PIRC would not truly investigate. From the disclosure we had received from the Crown Office in April 2015, we were intrigued that they highlighted they had extensive numbers of memoranda between police and fiscal. This prompted us to ask what documentation passed between the Fiscal and the police in February-March 2008 that prompted no further action. On the 15th of September 2015, we received a letter from the Crown Office informing us that the PIRC had been instructed by the Crown to investigate for evidence of criminality by Fife Police officers. While the idea that Fife Police being investigated would obviously be positive, we will see that again, it's not all as it seems. While I've been heavily involved with complaints, we had been taking other actions in parallel. As we were aware that the complaints process was going to facilitate yet another police officer reaching retirement without scrutiny, in May 14 we decided to lodge documents with the Crown Office's criminal allegation against police division. The complaints made focused on the many issues already presented throughout these vlogs, and needs little further explanation. Also around this time we sent another report to the Crown Office with a criminal allegation being made against a named individual. And further to this, we had been focusing on the forensic anthropologist report and had growing concerns to its integrity and legitimacy. We requested a copy of the pathology photographs and received these in April 2015. On the 27th of August 2015, a letter was sent from the Crown Office regarding our criminal allegations about an individual. We were told that nothing we presented was new and had previously been considered. We were also told that the Strathclyde investigation was meticulous. With regards to the first statement, it was not new. We were using Fife Police information, but it was definitely not presented by them. It also seems clear that there was a misunderstanding of elements of what was being said, and that could have been much in the drafting of our allegation. With regards to the Strathclyde investigation being meticulous, we need to come back to that. With so much of our time and attention on the complaint system, we had very little time to truly digest the report from the forensic anthropologist. Remembering that this report was a single piece of evidence that reduced the significance of the wound to Colin. It was the report that the senior Strathclyde officer said he could recite verbatim, and all from an investigation that was called meticulous by the Fiscal. And yet, despite all of this, when we came to review this report in some detail, we see that it is extensively built around one photograph, photograph 36 of the pathology pack. The report says, however, that this image of the wound is anatomically incorrect. It's on the wrong side of the body. The report also says that this should be checked out. This obviously caused immediate concern. If this was a trial, it would be inadmissible and would be thrown out of a court. How can you say you have evidence and yet in the same report state the wound's in the wrong place? This is starting to feel so familiar. We contacted the Crown Office and requested a pack of pathology photographs, and they were delivered. We sent copies to Professors Green and Busuttil for their thoughts. Neither could support the forensic anthropologist report, and could not see the same references made about photograph 36. We therefore asked for a meeting with the forensic anthropologist and the Fiscal, and this took place on 29th of October 2015.
And at the meeting, it very quickly transpired that the expert had been looking at the photograph upside down. But the bottom line was, the expert was saying that that photograph number 36 clearly showed a wound which did not go through the sternum, but went through soft tissue. And that was key, because the issue has always been in this case, if the knife went through the sternum, that would require more force than you would have expected Colin to be able to exert on the knife.
The outcome of the photograph 36 discussion was both helpful and concerning. It was clear from the forensic anthropologist that in photograph 36, the wound did not go through the sternum, but we failed to resolve the differences between this report and the numerous pathologists. It was disconcerting that a Fiscal that states we had a meticulous investigation knew nothing of the conflict within the report regarding the location, and even after writing in advance had done no preparatory work on it. We left at least satisfied we would have a follow-up meeting to discuss other areas of concern. Over the next few months we met at the Crown Office. Initially we presented work we had undertaken. Over the course of the meetings our work was dismissed. While always open to this happening, it was concerning how superficial the arguments we were up against, and worryingly that the police were at the source of this. Interestingly, as part of the rebuttal, the Fiscal used a timeline with important data and timelines we had never been given as part of the FAI. This would be useful. We reported that police working on his behalf had interviewed someone working with us, and they were trying to find out what we were working on. He said this wasn't his issue and we should take it up with the police. We finished frustrated, but more worryingly, we were informed that more than a year after being told PIRC were going to investigate Fife Police, we are now told that PIRC state it's outside their remit to investigate retired officers. This means that there is no independent investigative body in Scotland in place to look at any police-related issues before April 2013. We were told a lawyer would be appointed. Following the feeling of disappointment with our series of meetings at the Crown Office, it was important to put this in writing, highlighting our objections. We sent this letter on the 2nd of September 2016. We highlighted our concern on the forensic anthropologist report, in that there was a general disbelief that the original pathologists would support this report if they'd seen it in full. And further to this, we highlighted our concern that the photograph that the report is based upon may not be from Colin.